to be... Yes, thank you very much. So if you do not want to have your face appearing on this recording, you can always turn off your camera. Right, first of all, we take a look at the numbers of now 1.0. And I want to start off with asking you a question, which Sylvie will launch for me and which you can then ask. Yeah. There it is. Have you applied for now 1.0 or not? It is, your answer is anonymous. Simply reply yes or no. I will do the same and submit your answer. Oh, now it goes to the next slide. Well, it is processing, and in the meantime, I tell you a bit on now 1.0. As you can see, quite a lot of companies did a request, more than 138,000. And it covers 2.5 million employees. And thus far, the total spent on this now scheme 1.0 is 9.8 billion euros. The average loss of turnover is 67%, and it mostly regards small businesses. Only 6% is businesses with 50 employees or more, but 67% is less than 10 employees. So it is probably likely, yes, Sylvie?
Sorry, do you want me to share the result?
Yes, please share the outcome of the
Not everyone voted, but it's 75% said yes.
Okay. Well, and since you are now participating in this webinar, I think you will also want to participate now 2.0. So what is new in now 2.0? It was 3 months support. Now it's 4 months. So June, July, August, September. 1 month extra of support. There is a factor, a multiplying factor, which is multiplied by the salary for extra costs like pension or other extra costs an employer has. That is now raised. So the subsidy will be a bit higher. And there's a new requirement for large subsidies. So if the total subsidy is more than 125,000 in now 2.0 and the advance more than 100,000, it is not allowed to pay dividend or bonuses to the top management in the company. And there's also an obligation taken up. Every company that requests for now 2.0 declares to encourage employees to take training. There's no fine on it if you do not, but well, it is an obligation. And there is less deductions if dismissals are submitted on economic grounds. It is still in principle forbidden. However, if you do so, you get less deduction. I will explain that further in my presentation. And if you will make 20 dismissals or more during this support period, you will have to need an agreement with the unions, the trade unions, or otherwise the Works Council. So these are in highlight the differences. What remains the same? As Linda already explained, 20% loss of turnover, that is what you need to get support at minimum. And the whole system is sort of copied from now 1.0 and also most of the rules. So a lot stays the same. The government has published a document containing 53 pages in which all the rules are laid down and in which the government explains these rules. So it's quite a large document and quite detailed explanation. How does it work? In general, well, you submit online a request form at uwv.nl. you have to do this ultimately 31st of August. You have to give your percentage of loss of turnover, which you calculate over this whole period. I will explain more in detail in the next slides. And then you get an advance of 80% of this total support over the 4 months in 2 installments this time. Now, the first was in 3 installments, but now it's in 2. The first one after 2 to 4 weeks, and the second 2 months after you receive the second installment of this advance payment. After the support period, so October, November, then you must file for a final calculation of the support. And then, well, if you calculated it correctly in advance, you get the remaining 20%. If you had less loss of turnover, you might even have to pay back some money. But this final calculation requires an accountancy statement in some cases. In the cases where your subsidy is more than 125,000, so the large cases, you require an accountancy statement. And for the medium-sized subsidies, so between 125 and 25, and these are the total amount of subsidies, so not the advance, because the advance amounts are 120. But then you need a statement of a third-party expert. That could be your accountant or your administration office or your fiscal consultant. And if your total amount of subsidy is below 25 and the advance is below 20, then no statement is necessary at all. Okay, so then you are in the web portal of uwv.nl, and there you enter into a web form. What do you need to fill in? You fill in the address of the company. That has to be a Dutch address. So if you are a foreign company, you could use the address of the French Chamber of Commerce, which we have done in the now 1.0 requests. What is new under 2.0 is that you also need to fill in the registration number of the Chamber of Commerce. Most companies, even foreign ones, are registered at the Chamber of Commerce. However, not all of them. So there is a possibility, if you do not have this registration, to fill in only zeros, and then you can proceed in the form. You need to fill in the contact person, the wage tax number, which is very important. And then you have to choose a period over which you have calculated the loss of turnover. I will go into that in the next slide. And obviously you have to present your percentage, which you have calculated. And then you have to give your bank account. This can be a foreign bank account. That was a bit difficult under now 1.0. But after a lot of actions from the French Chamber of Commerce, finally it was realized to receive these advance payments on a foreign bank account. However, they could not be submitted through the web form, but they had to be submitted through a paper form sent to Eindhoven. Probably under now 2.0 it will be the same, because apparently the web system only takes in Dutch bank accounts. But it can be done. You need a copy of your bank statement, and after you have finished and filled it all in, you need to print it and you need to sign it. The legal representative of the company that requests this now subsidy. So that is how it works in practice. As I said, I explained a bit more how to calculate this loss of turnover. So you have to take the reference period. The reference period is 4 months, because you also get 4 months support, but you can choose. I see that only 3 months are mentioned. That is not completely correct. It should be added 1 month extra after each choice. But there's either the period starts with June, July, August, or September, and then 4 months. So please see that 1 month is added to each choice. That choice you made, if you made a choice under now 1.0, for example, to choose for the period June, July, August, then you must choose September, October, November. It has to fit your choice from now 1.0. So if you have chosen March, April, May on a now 0.0, then you have to choose June, July, August, September. And if you apply for the first time, you can choose whatever period you want. And obviously you then choose the period in which you expect the most loss of turnover. So it's a loss compared to a 4-month period in 2019. So you take your year turnover in 2019 divided by 3, because it's a 4-month period, and you set that off against the chosen period of 4 months. It has to be, it's important for your situation, the turnover of the group. However, only the Dutch legal entities and the entities with employees in the Netherlands are taken into account for the calculation of this turnover. That is the rule. So if you form part of a large group with also companies in other countries, these turnover of these companies do not have to be taken into account, only the Dutch legal entities and the entities with employees. Okay, if there's not any questions, I will go on. So how is it then calculated? A is the percentage loss of turnover which you have calculated. B is the monthly wage of all employees in March 2020. However, it is maximized by 9.5 thousand euros per month per employee. Because you have given your wage number to the UWV, they check this amount themselves. They simply look at your tax return of March 2020 and all the wages you are wage tax due on these amounts. So they check this amount, and that is the amount they use to calculate the subsidy. Then multiplied by 4, I'm sorry, there is an error in this presentation, and then multiplied by 1.4 multiplied by 0.9. It has to be 4 months. This is the old calculation. And then that is your total subsidy. So as you can see, the factor 1.4 is a bit higher than in the old formula. It was 1.3. And 0.9, that remains the same. And it multiplied by 4. I will make sure you get all corrected presentation after this presentation. Then there are deductions possible, as I mentioned in the beginning. If you dismiss people or if you start proceedings on dismissing employees, the moment of submitting your request to the UWV, because if you want to fire somebody in the Netherlands on economic grounds, you need to submit a request to the UWV. If you submit this request in the support period, so ultimately 30 September 2020, you will have a deduction. For each employee you've submitted the request, you will have a deduction of D multiplied by 3, and here the 3 is correct. Multiplied by 1.4 multiplied by 0.9. So the deduction is not the full period, not the 4 months, but 3 months. But still, it is the 0.9. And as you can see, there's not the loss of turnover percentage is not taken into account here. So they deduct the maximum So if you have a low percentage of loss of turnover, you get, relatively speaking, a higher deduction if you start dismissing people. Because as I said, it is in principle still forbidden. However, under now point 1, you got even a factor of 1.5 in the formula. So you get an extra fine for dismissing employees. That has been taken out, but still there is a deduction. Okay, there is a second deduction possible, and that is when you fire 20 people or more. That is a collective dismissal, we call it. And then you need to do a notification to the trade unions and the UWV if you fire 20 people or more. And if you do that, then you get a deduction of 5% on the total amount of subsidy. However, this deduction is not made if unions agree with dismissal. So you need to sit down with the unions and get them to agree on the dismissals. Probably in your cases, it is not really relevant, but I'll explain to you the whole arrangement. Then there is also a deduction that might be relevant also for your case, because as I said, it is calculated on the basis of the March payroll. But if the actual salaries in the period of June to September are lower than the March payroll, because, for example, a fixed term contract was not renewed, or you had on-call personnel in March, which you did not call in this period, then that difference is deducted also from the subsidy using another formula. I'll do now because it might dazzle you a bit, all these formulas, but you simply have to know that the idea of the Now Support scheme is, of course, that everybody remains working. The government supports you, but then you have to keep on board your employees, so not fire them and not and also renewing their contracts. If you do not, you get less support. There are other obligations. As I said, you have to encourage your employees to take training. I also said there's no fine on it, but you declare that you will do this as soon as you apply for NOW 2.0. Obviously, you have to keep auditable records, but there can be controls made after you've received your final subsidy. And if you have a works council, you are required to inform them. So it's only inform, not ask for them for their advice, but inform them on the requests now 2.0. And obviously you can only use the subsidies for paying salaries. So then you have received your support, the first installment after 2 to 4 weeks. So say, for example, next week you will submit your request. Then somewhere beginning of August, you will receive the first installment, and then 2 months later, so October, you will receive the second installment. But these are only advance payments, so in the end, you will need to submit your final calculation using the real wages that were paid, and also the definite calculation of your loss of turnover based on the real numbers. That can be done for now 2.0 as of half of November. That is opened, and there is a period of 24 weeks to do that. And for now 1.0, that opens in October. But there's still, it's not completely clear because the government has said that if you apply for now 1.0 and now 2.0, you have to submit both of them together So only in November. But if you only supplied now 0.1, only the first version, then you can submit earlier. But the details of this final submission rules will be published somewhere this summer. So it only will start September, October, November, and it will last 24 weeks. So well into 2021, you can still deal with this. Okay, this was in short now 2.0. Thank you very much for your attention. Should you have any questions, raise them, unmute yourself, or maybe you can unmute everybody. Sylvie, I leave that up to you.
I think people can unmute themselves normally, if they would like.
Yes.
Yes.
So if there are any questions, please.
Yes, I have a first question. The new period is 4 months, but on the slide for the choice of the period, there are 3 months that we have to choose, June to August, July to September. So that was not clear to me at the end.
That is completely understandable. That's not clear because, as I mentioned, there should be 1 month added to each of these choices.
Okay, so it would be June to September.
Yes.
Or July to October. Okay.
Yes, and I'm sorry for that. I will send a revised version of the presentation, but to each of these choices, a month should be added. Yes.
Okay. At the moment, I don't have any registration at the Chamber of Commerce. Is that the KVK number?
Yes.
Okay. Does it imply anything that we have to pay or something, or is it just the number that we have to ask?
It is some new requirement, but the form gives you the option to fill in only zeros, and so then you don't have this number. If you don't have this number, you can fill in only zeros, and then you can proceed in the web form without this. So it's not a problem.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Questions? Okay. Well, thank you very much then for your attention. And as I said, you will be sent the final presentation to your email address. And I wish you all good luck with submitting your support. And should you need any help on this, do not hesitate to contact me.
Okay, thank you.